How's it going, James? OnlineCarShow.net. Well, decided to upgrade the Focus brakes. I had some bad grooving going on the rotors on the back side. So we're replacing all 4 rotors, replacing the pads. We're doing a full hardware kit, bleeding the brakes, and I'm going to paint them. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the tool section and then jump into the actual install and change. So without hesitation, let's go ahead and get this video started. Alright, we'll just give an overview of what's going on here and the reason I chose to do this. I'm going kind of the more expensive route on this. You can just take these off to a point, take them up to AutoZone. They'll plane them out flat for you. So you can go that route. It's way cheaper and just go with the stock brakes, plane them down straight. These front ones are actually decent. I could get away maybe with just doing pads. You can feel with your finger. There are some little grooves here. I don't know if you can see them at all, but there is some grooving going on, but this is definitely something I could plane out, AutoZone, something like that, very easily throw back on. The back though, you can see it's real bad. They could probably still plane that out. I'm just gonna go ahead and opt to replace the back tube disc. And because I wanna go cross drilled and slotted, I'm gonna replace all 4. So here's where we're at, and once we get those off, might as well go ahead and throw some paint on the calipers and some clear coat, make it look good. Y'all know how I roll. If something's broken, I gotta fix it better than before. All right, just wanted to real quickly go over the tools that are gonna be needed for the job. I'll try to have a link to a lot of this in the description, maybe not all of it, but some of the hard to find stuff. First off, we're gonna need to jack up the vehicle, so you're gonna need everything associated with that. You're gonna need jack stands. We're not gonna be able to use the emergency brake during this, so you will need wheel chocks. And of course you're going to need a jack. You'll also need a way to take the lugs off. I'm opting of course for the drill here, but you can use a 4-way for that process. Now as far as taking the caliper off, you are going to need a socket wrench along with, I think I used a 3/4 here, but it may be a 15mm for the front, and I used a 13mm for the rear. Just know that can change with the vehicle, of course you're doing this too. Also, you will need a 10mm wrench just for bleeding the brakes if you're opting to do that. You're also, I don't have it out here, but you're gonna need a 7mm Allen key. And if it's a Ford, you're gonna have the fun thing of needing a brake caliper compressor tool. And that looks like this here. They're about 18 bucks on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. This kit here is pretty good. And for the front, I just use the D-ring clamp, and this is actually for Chevy brakes and most brakes. This is what you need for both sides, just to compress the wheel cylinder. Rear of some Fords like this one are actually a screw, so the front brakes will use a normal just style clamp to press them in. The rear brakes, you're going to have a little screw tool you can buy online. You're also going to need stuff to clean the brakes, and in this I don't have it out here, but you're going to need a wire brush. Also, some of these little wire tools to connect to a cordless drill really help. I think we used this one in the video. And as far as chemicals I used brake cleaner, of course, to clean a lot of the parts in combination with the brush. And I use this stuff right here, which I use a lot of my painting projects. It will burn plastics and paint, so don't put it in any plastic or painted surface that you're not painting, but because it will scar it. But it leaves a really nice clean surface, removes wax and grease from the surface right before you paint. This stuff really helps. I've also got, for the paint, we've gone with the Duplicolor Caliper paint. It's got ceramic in it. That should help with heating. You don't want to go with normal paint on this. You want to make sure it's something that'll take some heat. And this is my go-to for rattle can clear coat. I'm so glad I found this stuff. It's actually got a hardener in there. When you paint, you take the little cap off, put it on the bottom, smash it against the ground, then shake it up. It's got a hardener in there that lasts for 2 days after you crack it. So you've got 48 hours to use the bottle once you crack it open. Well, I don't see it here, but I used this is glass cleaner. I used an Adams product like this called All Purpose Cleaner. I think I ran out of it. I need to order some more. It's pretty cheap though. But the all-purpose cleaner and the brake cleaner and a wire brush and the tool, you should be able to get your calipers totally clean. The other big thing I used, of course, was blue painter's tape to mask everything off, and I used some of this plastic kind of shielding stuff. I don't know, I'll try to search for this for you guys on Amazon and try to find you a cheap link for some. The other thing you could opt for too is maybe putting on some finishing polish at the end. That's kind of optional if you want it super freaking shiny. After everything dries, you're about to put it all together, you might come in with some final polish, something like that. You are also gonna need, I like this little one-way valve for doing brakes. It just ensures that air will not go back. I'm gonna be using a two-person method in this, but I'm gonna be using a one-person method as well, just to ensure, you know, that nothing air goes back up in there. And another trick is making sure it's always submerged in fluid. As you can see, I've still got, well, you may not see, but there's brake fluid in there from the front brakes. I'm just going to leave it in there. That way it's always submerged and there's less chance of air going back up in there. If you're doing a one-person method, that's basically the only trick to it, is just limiting the possibility of air going back up the line. Two-person method, you have a lot less chance of that happening, but just to be safe, we're going to do kind of combine the two. As I mentioned, RBF 660, this stuff right here is freaking awesome. It's all I use in the Corvette for the clutch and the brakes, and I love this stuff. It does only have a 2-year life, so just know you need to bleed your brakes if you're using this racing brake fluid about every 2 years, which I do in the Corvette. If you want to get rid of some of the old fluid in there before you put in the new, you can use a turkey baster. We've also, of course, got the pads. These are ceramic, carbon metallic, kind of a mix, which I like to go with. They will have some brake disc over, you know, a higher content ceramic, but you'll also get a little more brake performance. So these are kind of a mid. They should be a little bit less brake dust than stock, which will be good. The other thing you're gonna need is some anti-squeal or whatever, brake anti-squeal lubricant, whatever you want to call it. And there's a big misconception on this, I'll tell you all right now. A lot of people put it on the front of the pad. That is not how this stuff is supposed to be used, and I don't know if that'll probably ruin your brake. But anyways, you actually put this on the back of the pad where the metal is, and any part that the brake is going to be, you know, moving back and forth. But just to go over some of the other stuff you're going to need, of course, you're going to need, when you order it, you're going to need to order rotors, or get the ones you have planed. Also, I highly recommend you get a hardware kit. Anytime you mess with the brakes, you're gonna have all that stuff off. These hardware kit, it was like 30 bucks for front and back, and it's got brand new springs, all new rubber pieces. So I highly recommend you get a hardware kit. Cross drilled and slotted should help with cooling a little bit, just under, you know, if you've heavy braked for a while and you get a lot of heat buildup, this should help get rid of some of that. And it looks cool on the vehicle. Just to show you all again the before and after. The before looks like, it looked like that on the front, of course, but a little bit bigger rotor and caliper. But that's kind of the stock look. And then we're hopefully, you know, the wheel's dirty, so excuse that. Paint the rotors. We're also gonna, or the caliper, we're also gonna clear coat. And you can see the paint doesn't last. Of course, it is gonna fade with the brake pressure. Also, as you can see, they didn't do the best painting job. This was R1 Concepts, I believe, is who I bought these from, and I was kind of disappointed at the painting job they did. So you may reach out and find a different company other than I used. I know R1 Concepts is highly regarded and used a lot, but I was kind of disappointed on their paint job on these. Basically gonna take it from that look, you know, with the dull caliper, to the nice planted clear coated. This is going to be a little bit longer video, so y'all just hold with me, but I'm going to try to speed it up as much as possible. All right, well, once you get the car up in the air, you want to go ahead and clean off the area. I use some Adams general purpose cleaner just to get the area nice and clean. Spray it off with the hose, let it dry. And also you can use some brake cleaner just on the brake parts. Try to keep it away from anything rubber. I've got the wheel chocks down, keeping it safe. And the next step will be to remove the cap from the brake reservoir, just so you can release some pressure. Then we're gonna get that caliper off. It will take a 13 millimeter with the ratcheting in. That's what I recommend you do on this. Make life a little easier. You're gonna need to get in there, and this top 13 millimeter bolt connects the caliper to the wheel assembly. And back here, there's another one. If I get in the right spot, right there, right where my finger is, right where that finger is. It looks like this. But you're going to want to remove both of those bolts so we can slide off the caliper. All right, Eddie's helping me out here. He said, you said this was a 7, Allen?
Yeah.
And then you loosen this?
Yes. Hold
on both sides?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's what we're going to do next. And pop the springs out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you got a hardware kit, you'll get a new spring kit anyway, so you can throw that old one away. You might match it to the new one and make sure before you toss it. So you release both sides?
Yes.
Ah, it'll make it easier coming off. Yeah. I got you. This is a Ford. It's gonna have the back screw thing where the fronts were push in. So the back ones are a pain in the ass. Oh, make sure the parking brake is released. That might help. All right, now with the release, she pops right off. So you get the one clip off and the 2 side bolts, 7mm Allen key.
Yeah.
And then she pops all apart. Yeah, these brake pads aren't that bad. Eddie said maybe dirt or something, maybe rust got in there. You can see some bad grooving. You can feel it driving. So it was this is back brakes are why it needed brakes. All right, next we're gonna do the brake tool here for Fords. And these two little end things will connect inside these little holes and allow you to twist it. And that back plate's gonna stop it from going anywhere. I'll have a link in the description where you can get a tool like this. You'll need it for Fords. A lot of the Mustangs, I think some of the trucks are like this too, right? Ford trucks?
Yes.
Mustangs, Ford trucks, Focuses, Fiesta. So as he's pushing in there, you see that thing going inside. And what that is doing is it's pushing fluid back up into the reservoir up here. That's why you leave the cap off and get it totally flat, because our new pads will be wider than the old pads. So it's not all gonna fit together without making some more room. Thank you, Eddie.
You're welcome.
There we go. You should feel it go tight where it snugs the metal together and you're done. All right, now that we got everything apart and pads all out, next step will be just doing some cleaning here. I'm gonna use some brake clean. You wanna be careful not to get too much of it on this rubber seal going around here. For that, I'm gonna use the all-purpose cleaner and just a brush. Try to clean it up as best as possible. But we wanna get the metal, especially the outside where the paint is, pretty spotless. We're gonna start with that. Then once everything's cleaned up fairly good, I'm gonna use this Duplicolor grease and wax remover. Don't get this anywhere near a painted surface or rubber or even a plastic. It will burn it, but it's really good for metal surfaces and prepping them for paint. So we'll use that especially, you know, on the outside where the paint's gonna be showing the most. Get a good clean bond for the paint. First step is, of course, I'm gonna use a little bit of brake cleaner, knock off a lot of the big stuff, and then I'm gonna come back with the Adams multi-purpose and clean my seal really good. And then we'll probably spray it clean with the water hose, let it dry really good. Oh, and we also need to clean this caliper piece here. Oh, one thing I missed out on here, the disc itself. It's probably a good time we go ahead and take it off. We're gonna be replacing it anyways, so be a good time just to go ahead and get rid of it out of the picture. It is a little stiff as I'm pulling on it. So what I'm gonna do, just to help release it a little bit before I start prying, is use a little bit of WD-40. Just kind of give it a spray there. Maybe a spray where it can get it in the back. And we're just gonna let that soak for a couple of minutes. Come back, wiggle on it, and see if it releases. Yeah, there it goes, it released, I saw it. All right, there you go. Well guys, I've kind of skipped ahead here, but I'm gonna go over it all, so catch y'all up real quickly here. We already got everything cleaned off. Y'all saw that. Only thing I've done here is applied one coat of paint, and you can see how I've done it. Plastic for me as I paint. All I've done is simply created a plastic shield here, so I don't have to take apart any of the brake lines, anything like that. Just make sure you don't have any holes going through, because anywhere there's a hole, paint's gonna go through too. So keep checking that, make sure your holes are pushed in. Should be good. I do put it pretty heavy, but not heavy enough that it'll drip, but you don't want that. And here's what I've done for the whatever you want to call it, brackets on the caliper. You do want to be careful. You might stuff those with tape. I probably should have, just to keep paint out of the threads or whatnot. But I did go ahead, you can see it kind of there. Anywhere you've got, you know, metal on metal, you don't want paint. So there's a little groove down here that the brake caliper slides on. I've put blue tape on that just to make sure paint doesn't get on that. Only paint part you really need to be concerned about is the front part, which is this part, which is what people are going to see anyways. All right, just for an update here, we put on 2 coats of paint. I put 3 coats of clear. Last coat you want to put really heavy, just where it's almost fogging up and it's a good layer. You can see it drying there. That's what you're looking for. Cleared off all the other plastic just for it to dry here. We're gonna wait and come back tomorrow when it's fully dried, put on all the hardware, put it back on, let it dry overnight. You do want to go ahead and remove the tape from the cylinder just so it's not a pain in the butt later. While it's wet, go ahead and remove it. All right, well, she dried overnight, looking good. You should get a smooth, hard finish afterward. Clear coat selection matters a lot with it. That hardener is very key in getting a good clear coat, I've found, with at least the automotive stuff. So I recommend using it. I'll have a link in the description. It is kind of expensive. I think I spent $38 for 2 cans or $36 for 2 cans of it. So it is pricey, but you are gonna get what you pay for, like most things. What we're gonna try to do now is get everything put back together. And I'm gonna try it a different way. I know there's different ways to skin this cat. I believe the easiest way, from what I'm seeing and from talking to Eddie and stuff, would be to connect the caliper, then can put my brake pads on, then put this top caliper piece over it. I'm hoping that's right. We'll see. The exact same. So I guess it didn't matter which side you put it on because it's the exact same part. The other thing here I want to make clear, these probably used to have keepers on them on their old disc, but whoever had the car before, for whatever reason, removed the keepers. They are a good idea to keep on there. They just kind of keep your disc straight while you're putting everything back together. Make it a little bit easier. But if you don't have them, it's okay. The wheel is actually going to be pushing in and keeping everything snug for us. $13mm. Next thing is you want to take your new hardware, these new rubber pieces, and they're going to slide back the same spot the old one is. It's kind of a pain to get them in there, but they will go. Try greasing her up. There you go. Next, just needed a little slick stuff. I'm just using a little bit of brake anti-squeak just to kind of lube it up, get it in the hole. It seems to work pretty good. Oh yeah, that'd be so much easier. All right, done. Okay, so think we can go ahead and put our pads. I went with a carbon metallic ceramic mix, so hopefully they'll get a little good performance, not a lot of brake dust. These should slip. The back one's got the clip, the front one gonna fit just like that. Now what you want to do here, and what I like to do, the brake anti-squeak, I put a little bit on the back just to tear, just to kind of lube it up a little bit. This is where you'll get brake squeak, is actually not the pads themselves but on the back. And I like to put a little bit on these rails, or at least right here, so that thing's got some you know, anywhere you're gonna have metal rubbing, you want to add this stuff in. Try not to get it on the pads. So there's that one. And this one's only going to get pressure here in the center, so you might just put a little bit of this goop stuff in just the middle of it on the back one. That's where it's going to get the pressure. And of course on the rails again, and that'll, like I said, just help it from being metal on metal squeaking. That's where you're going to get your brakes, a lot of your brakes squeak, unless you're running recent brakes. And there we go. Brakes are in place. One step left is just to mount the caliper back together. And I think we got those screws right here. And they were a 7mm Allen key. I hope not. And then these bolts, everything's right, should just slip through. Yeah, there we go. I'll have to go get my 7mm Allen key now. Get this in the damn bolt. There we go. All right, 7mm Allen keys in. Sure I want to tighten. Okay. So I can get this one lined up good, maybe. There you have it. She is done. I am going to opt to bleed the brakes. That's this little bleeder screw back here. You just take the cap off. We're going to be doing that next. But just so you know, if you're not bleeding the brakes, this is as far as you take it. Put the cap back on the brake reservoir and you are good to drive. It may take, can't remember if this is the brake system. You have to go in reverse a little bit and then brake, but just know that the brake calipers will adjust and will tighten down, so you should be good to go there. All right, well, I thought that was the end, but we still have this clip to put on, right? So we're gonna put the clip on, then we'll be good to go. Remember how this fucker goes. What I like to do is just do one side, like that. Get it good in the hole, all the way in as far as you can, and then do your other side. You should be golden. It's the part you got to be careful with the paint. I just scratched it. But with a little luck, you can get that sucker on. All right, just to go over kind of how I'm going to bleed it here. I've gone ahead and put the wrench on. I've also got my tube going down to my can. I've got a one-way valve here. This will stop the fluid or air from possibly going back up. And I've also got this tube submerged in brake fluid from the front brakes, but if you don't have brake fluid already, you can just put a little bit down there, reservoir, before starting this. And speaking of which, I did that. Emptied out all of the oil that I could possibly get with the turkey baster out of the master or the reservoir here, so it is filled up pretty good. You do want to make sure as you're bleeding the brakes, you know, every couple times you go back, make sure your fluid doesn't go empty. If you go empty, you're just introducing air into the line. You're gonna have to start the whole process over. If you're doing this one at a time, it's always recommended to start with the brakes closest to the master cylinder and work yourself away from them. So you'd start with this one, work your way to that side, then this one, then that one, if you want to do it the correct way. I've already got this one set up, so I'm just going to bleed it on this back one. You want to, you know, look at the fluid coming through till you're seeing clean fluid and you're not getting any, you know, bubbles and stuff coming through as you're doing it. That's a good sign that you flushed it good. You should see the clean fluid coming through. And I'm kind of running out of battery here, and I don't want to waste y'all's time just going through me saying push, release, but that's basically what's going to happen here. I'm going to get a driver or a person in the car to push on the brake pedal. I'm going to release, or I can go ahead and lift up because I haven't let them yet, but you want to go ahead and release the pressure, tell them to push on the brakes, and then as that fluid stops coming through so hard, you'll close it and tell them release. They'll release the brake, and then you're going to open it again, tell them to push, hold it down, tell them to release. So basically, when they're releasing, this valve should be closed. You're going to go open, push, close, release. Open, push, close, release. That's the process. That's how you flush your brakes, bleed your brakes. We replaced the pads, we replaced the rotors, got them painted. Everything's looking good, man. But that's it. We're gonna put this all back together, and I'll give you some in footage. All right, well, as you can see, this is going to be kind of a time consuming. I would say if you're doing all four at the same time, you can of course get it all broken down in a day, but then you're going to have to paint it, wait at least a day for that clear coat, plus plenty of time for each stage of paint. So you're looking at, you know, a good 2-day project here, I would say, if you could devote 2 full days to it. But the results are awesome. You only should have to do this once, and it speaks for itself. I was very disappointed with R1 Concepts painting. I mean, I paid extra to get these calipers black, and they were only kind of half-ass painted, so not very happy with them. You might search for another company out there that's got does a little bit better job with the painting. But that's all I got for y'all this week, so stay tuned. I got a bunch more coming for the Focus. We've got a big mod coming for the Corvette, so stay tuned for that surprise, and I'll probably be doing a giveaway by the end of the year. So if you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe below so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. Thanks again, and hope you all have a wonderful week.